Welcome back, class 8, in our online class. Today, I will be starting with a new chapter, that is British policies and impacts. So, in last class, I have given you a worksheet activities, and in that activity, you have learned about Lord Cornwallis, British India, and the statement whether that statement was true or false. So, today we will proceed with our chapter. So, uh, in chapter, what we are going to understand about different policies that British adopted after gaining power in India and what were their impacts in India, we will be going to study in this session. So, the East India Company adopted a new policies in which there was no room for Indian interest. So, these statement, this line itself says that British adopted new policy. But what was the main result was there was no room for Indian interest. Like they did not took care, or they did not had any interest of India, okay, because East India Company ruled India over 200 years. More than that, they exploited India. Every thing was exploited. So we will be going to study these in subsequent chapters also. Okay, the main objective of these policies of whose the East India Company's objective was to get maximum revenues, means finance money, because East India Company was a big company, okay, so they need finances to run the company. So that's why their main objective was to get maximum revenues. And their long-term objective means it's to consolidate and perpetuation of British rule in India. Means consolidate means to finalize. It's finalize or withhold withhold and perpetuation of British rule in India. So long we talked about two objectives. The first objective was to maximize revenue, and the ultimate or a long-term objective was to consolidate or finalize the rule in India. Whose rule? British East India Company's rule. Okay, the result of this policy. Uh, we are talking about the policies. So in subsequent slides I will be talking about the what were the policies. Okay, so these policy I am talking about as a whole. Okay, whole together, the result of these policies caused many hardships to Indians. It caused many hardships to Indians, and some turned to be beneficial for them. So there was many problems. There was many problems to Indians, okay, but these policies also benefited India, because we India had so much of social evils were practiced at that period of time. Now the new policies totally impacted the India, and that policies in some way or the other also benefited India. Not just negative impacts, but there had some positive impacts too. So British introduced what we will study about: new economic policies, new education system, and new means of transports and communication. So these three things was introduced in India, because India has a different pattern of education. India had different pattern of policies. India had different pattern of transport and communication at that period of time. So these totally changed, because in last chapter we have already studied about how British transferred its power from being a trading company to a politically active and authoritative power. Last two chapters, like Traders to Rulers part 1 and Traders to Rulers part 2, we have already discussed. So moving forward, British economic policy had it was formulated with dual purposes. Okay, dual purposes means dual means two motive. Number one was money making, as I've already discussed, and perpetuating British rule in India. This is also I have already discussed in first slide. Okay, 1 and 2. What was the main purpose or main motive of British policy? Was it's to make money and to make perpetuate British rule in India, means to enlarge more deeply the British rule in India. So the direct objective. Now we talk about simple objective, long term objective, and now we will talk about direct objectives. So direct objectives of its economic policy. We are talking about economic policy. Okay, not just policy but economic policy of who's British. Okay, so direct objective of economic policy was to make India a supplier of cheap raw materials to the industries in England. Look, this statement also says that the Britishers wanted India to be supplier, because at that period of time India was very much very much resourceful. It was it was so much treasures were there, so many things were there, resource in India was naturally rich country. So in British wanted raw materials for their industries to be run in England. So main objective or long term direct objective was to make India a supplier of cheap raw materials for the industries which were in England. Now, significance of agriculture and land revenue policy. What are the significance of land and revenue policy? British India, when British came to India and started to rule, particularly India was when British took the power or took control over the India, then naturally as a whole they termed it as British India. Don't be confused. Okay, British India, it's totally India. It's totally India, not a separate country. Okay, British India were at that period of time was totally as agricultural country. India's economic prosperity depend largely on development of agriculture, because the major inputs of industrial development such as cotton, jute, sugarcane, etc. were agriculture products. So at that period of time, what happened? India is an agricultural country, and India's economic prosperity, economic well-being of that particular country of India was dependent upon which products, major inputs means we have to we do input, then only we get in output. Okay, result. Okay, so the inputs in industrial development was as for raw materials of cotton, jute, sugarcane were there. So it was largely dependent upon this one. Agriculture and cotton directly depend upon each other, because it needs certain favorable climatic conditions to cotton to grow. Okay, so more or less we can say that agriculture plus cotton industries totally depend upon each other. So their water irrigation facilities, how much weather conditions, so on and so forth. So but what happened? When British took over the control of India, British land revenue policy, there was no Indian interest or the interest of the cultivators. What happened? This is how, like previously done in British India, but when British took over the control of India, the policies directly changed, and what happened was the interest was not according to Indian cultivators. Rather, the interest was totally based up for the supplying raw materials to England. Now, British industry introduced new system of what? Land rights and policy of revenue administration. So what happened means, then after some period of time, British introduced new system of what, land rights and policy for revenue administration. And further going to deeper, and as the days passed by, what happened means that it had a far reaching changes in agriculture structure of a country, means a result, far-reaching agriculture result in an agriculture in an agrarian structure of a country. Why? Because India was largely dependent upon agriculture activities, and we can consider India as an agricultural country at that period of time. So this totally affected handicraft industries also. Okay, so what we at this point we were talking about, British introduced a new system of policy, right? So new policies was, um, British introduced permanent settlement permanent settlement, Ryotwari system, and Malawari system. So one by one we need to Mahaal system. So we will be studying about permanent settlement, Ryotwari system, and Mahaal system. So these systems are the most important changes that British made in Indian India when they they became authoritative, like when they hold a power in India. So British land revenue system, the process of establishing a new revenue system started in Bengal and Bihar after the British got the grant of Diwani of Bengal, Bihar, and Orissa. Diwan means tax, okay? So and tax of Bengal, Bihar, and Orissa in 1765 century. So like these I have already talked in chapter 1 plus 2. Okay, how slowly British gradually took over the political process. So we have already discussed. Then what happened after that one? British began a temporary settlement of land in 1772 CE. Under this system, the right to collect revenue was auctioned to the highest bidder. So, what happened means, the right to collect. Now, at that period of time when previously we were ruled by, Indians were ruled by kings, and all that, whatever the things and they had to give to the things would have collected by the mantris of king or directly given to the king. Okay, so after the British got power in India, they changed that thing. Okay, so what happened was, to collect revenue, okay, to collect, or we need a person to collect revenue, right? Because we didn't had any king. Now we had lord, British lords that we have to be like came now and then in India, because queen was there in England. Then different lords were there, okay, lords of particular provinces were there. So under that, so many people were there, and one people need to collect revenue. Okay, so one people need to collect revenue. So how these lord used to choose this people, okay, to collect the revenue? So what happened was, whoever bid highest, whoever used to bid highest, then that person was like was given a right to collect revenue. Okay, so it was very much complex. If you bid higher amount, okay, if someone is here, okay, I'll make this one clear. If someone is here, okay, so he bids 100 rupees for getting a chance to collect revenue. So if this person bids 50 rupees for to get a chance to collect revenue, and ultimately this person bids like 200, okay, so automatically this lords, different lords used to say that, okay, the person C is now eligible to collect revenues to revenues to collect the money. So naturally person C will be chosen. So in this way the collection of revenues was done, and whoever used to bid higher, that person used to be chosen as a revenuer. So it was called revenue farming system. So this process was called as revenue farming system. So if the question comes, what is revenue farming system, you need to explain. Under this system, the right to collect revenue was auctioned to the highest bidder. If this becomes your question, this is your direct answer. So kindly write it in your copy, so that in exams whenever the question comes, you can write, you will be answerable, because it's totally based on the syllabus. So let's talk about a permanent settlement. Istamari Bandobast. Lord Cornwallis introduced the permanent settlement. So who introduced? Lord Cornwallis introduced permanent settlement. It was introduced to the northwestern province of northern Carnatic. So you need to remember northwestern provinces and North Carnatic. There are these have one introduced in northwestern provinces and northern Carnatic. So in 1792, Lord Cornwallis gave the right of ownership to the Jamindars. So ultimately, the entry of Jamindars came. So these totally changed the narratives. Okay, so in 1792, who gave? Lord Cornwallis gave the right of ownership to the Jamindars. Ownership means to hold certain powers of the land. Okay, so, features of permanent settlement. Permanent settlement made jamindars as a hereditary owners of the land. So, what happened was permanent settlement made zamindars as a hereditary owner. So, if a person is like a zamindar, his son will be also zamindar. Then his son will also be zamindar. So, as a kingship, okay, kingship. Permanent settlement meant Jamindars hereditary owners of the land. I guess this one is clear. Zamindars were supposed to pay a fixed amount of revenue. Jamindars whom Jamindars need to pay fixed amount of revenues to the British lords. Okay, so the amount was very high. So if that amount was very high, he used to get to collect revenue, so on and so forth. So if he couldn't, then next person would have been chosen as a zamindars. Revenue was to paid at a certain date. So same like we need to pay our electricity bill in certain particular time and particular date, then only we will get like electricity, right? So at that period of time also revenue was to be paid at certain date. Okay, zamindars retained 10% of fixed amount and paid the remaining 90% of the 90% to the British. So it was very much unethical, because whatever they used to, if okay, now if they used to collect 100 rupees, okay, the zamindars used to collect 100 rupees, then what happened was 10%, like 10% has to be kept by zamindars, and remaining 90 like okay, 90 rupees or not percent. If a person like zamindars hold 10 rupees, then 90 rupees was to be given to the British. Okay, so whatever the amount they used to collect, 10% they used to keep for themselves, and 90% they had to give to the British. So the zamindars held zamindaris in village but stayed in cities. So the zamindars didn't stay on a village. Okay, they used to sit on village cities, and at certain date or certain time, the collected money used to come to their hands, and they used to keep 10%, and 90% was given to the British. So this was the functioning of permanent settlement. Main beneficiaries was the state. It received a fixed amount on a fixed date. It passed on the responsibility of revenue collection to the zamindars. I have already discussed this one. The new zamindars were also the beneficiaries. They remained faithful to British. So whoever became a new zamindars, they became very loyal to the British, because at least they used to earn 10%, right? So they became very much faithful to the British. So like it was a totally nuisance, like that was not very good. So Mahalwari system introduced in major parts of northwestern provinces such as Punjab, Delhi, in central India and western Uttar Pradesh. So now I'll make you clear: east, west, north and south. So this just remember sun rises in the east and sets in the west. So we are talking about Mahalwari system. Mahalwari system was introduced in major parts of northwestern provinces. So we are talking about India, right? India. If this is whole of India, so northwestern provinces will fall upon Punjab, Delhi, Uttar Pradesh, central India, so much central India, etc. Okay, so be clear with your map's positioning. So village was put under groups. So that village was put under groups. So this slide will be moving like this. Okay, it will go to 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8. Okay, don't be confused. It's not like this, it's not like this, it goes like this. Okay, so the village was put under groups, and that groups were called as Mahaal. Okay, and each Mahaal had one headman. Understood? British made revenue settlement with village or a group of villages. Okay, for revenue system was made for one village or a group of village actively a village collectively own a land, and demand of revenue was maximum. So they need to earn more money, they need to earn more profit. Okay, so it was fixed at 60% of the produce. It was fixed at 60% of the produce they need to give to the British. Okay, so if there is 100 rupees, 60%, 60 rupees has to be given to the British, and remaining 40 they would have kept, the villagers used to keep. Okay, so this is how Mahalwari system does. But in permanent settlement it was 90% to be given to the British. Okay, now moving forward, Ryotwari system introduced in the parts of Madras Presidency and Bombay Presidency, Berur, Assam. So there was no intermediary between the state and the present. No intermediary means no lords. Okay, just British and villagers, no in between, because in permanent settlement and Ryotwari system we had lords in between, right? Now in this Ryotwari system there was no intermediary between the state and the British. The British made settlement directly with peasants. Okay, as I said out here, peasants enjoy the ownership of land as long as they pay the revenue. So everyone, whoever gave revenues, they enjoy the ownership of land. They like that is my land. They can say that that is my land, because they are giving ownership, they are giving revenues to the Britishers. So revenue was fixed for 20 to 40 years. Okay, that particular person needs to pay revenue or money to the 20 or 40 years. For 40 years, not just money, they whatever the cultivated products that they used to produce, they need to give, and the whatever the Britishers used to tell to cultivate, that used to be cultivated in Indian agricultural farm. Now British demanded 45% and 55% of total production. Now what happens in 100, what happens, 45 to 55 percentage they demanded. Okay, so revenue rate was very high. Many peasants turned into the bonded level. So what happened was, in order to get that ownership for 20 to 40 years, the peasants turned to be a bonded labor. Like their son, their grandson or granddaughter, they used to be like bonded, because they need to pay like tax or revenue for 20 to 40 years. So it was like a never stopping process. Now this is just like to make you understand where this Mahalwari system was there. Northern western provinces like Punjab, Uttar Pradesh, and Central Delhi, etc. And permanent settle was Bengal, Bihar, and Orissa, and Ryotwari system was in Bombay and Madras. So be clear with this picture so that you will be clear where it was introduced. Okay, so land revenue policies were totally about like three policies, that is permanent settlement, Ryotwari system, and Malwari system. So with this and sheet like diagram or a tabular representation, you will be understanding. It will be very easy for land revenue policies. Now moving forward, types of land revenue policy under British rule. uh, you know that permanent settlement, Ryotwari, and Mahalwari. So who introduced? Lord Cornwallis introduced permanent settlement. Thomas Munro introduced Ryotwari system, and Lord William Bentinck introduced Mahalwari system. So please be clear about who introduced what kind of system in India. Now this is like just a summing of land revenue system in British India. Zamindari, Ryotwari, Maharwari were the major system of land revenue collection that existed in India. Introduced by Lord Cornwallis in 1793, Ryotwari, Thomas Munro 1820, and William Bentinck in 1833. So there is a certain change. Okay, introduced in Bihar, Bengal, Bihar, Orissa, and Banaras, Madras, Bombay, Eastern Bengal, Assam, and Korg, and northwestern provinces, part of central India, Punjab, Ganges Valley, and British India. Ownership of land. Zamindars were recognized as the owner of the land. Riots were organized as the owners of the land. No ownership, because at Mahalwari system, like let's focus upon the this one. You can just write this one also, rots. You don't need to write this one, RYOTS. Okay, rights are to collect the rent. Zamindars were given the right to collect the rent from the peasants. British government collected taxes directly from the peasants. Ryotwari, no intermediary, as we have discussed. The village committee was held responsible for the collection of the taxes. So on your, there was lords, there was no intermediary. Village itself collected, because village owned the land and villagers itself collected the taxes. So this is just a distinction between how revenue was collected pre, means before Britishers, and this is after when British took over. Land revenue was assessed according to the condition of the crop, means if the crop was good, they used to get more money. Revenue was collected on the basis of area, how much hectares, how much area, acre of land that what particular ownership had. So this was and this is how it was accessed. Now revenue was collected from the grains. Okay, now payment of revenue was compulsory in cash or within the prescribed time or limit, means cash means coins or certain things they need to give in gold or silver, bronze, etc. It was waived if the failed cropped, like the taxes was waived if the crop was failed, but the land was if that particular person didn't give any revenue to the government, I'm sorry, British. What was that? The land was confiscated and that land was given to the other person. Okay, the system of collection of revenue was same. The system of collection is differed from regions to regions. Farmers were exploited. These had the uniform in before, when king used to rule, it had a uniform collection of revenue. But these after when Britishers came, it was totally changed. Okay, like it differed from place to place, it differed from region to region. On top of that, farmers were exploited, and they were like said that if a farmer is there and his land produced only rise. At that period of time, Britishers used to say that no, now from now on you don't need to produce rice, you need to produce cotton. So that is mandatory, and in that way many farmers were exploited, so on and so forth. So this much for today. This is just the picture of Lord Cornwallis. He is Lord Cornwallis. This is Thomas Monroe, and this is Lord William Bentinck. So this is just an image. So I guess you are clear with what were the policies, what were their significance, and three different policies that British introduced that changed the whole narratives of India as an agricultural country, like Permanent Settlement, Ryotwari system, and Mahaal System. So please make your notes. Till then, stay safe and take care.